And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wang's at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, sometimes when people email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, it's that they have a request. And I'm here to fulfill that request. Someone wanted to hear Barbara Ferrer with the Beatles.
She loves you. Yeah.
Well, the Music Hall of Fame is missing an inductee.
Yeah.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a former member of the California Senate, Senator Roy Ashburn. Welcome.
Hi, John. Great to be with you.
Thanks so much for stopping by. Well, tonight is the big GOP debate at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley. Of course, Donald Trump, who is leading the pack by some 50 or 60 points, depending on which poll you look at, or the Real Clear Politics average, will not be participating. He will be here in the state of California. He'll be raising some money and speaking at the California Republican Party convention in Orange County over the weekend. The Democrats and the Biden team have decided that their spokesman at the debate, who will be in the spin room and going on all the cable news programs to give his perspective after the debate is over, will be none other than California Governor Gavin Newsom. Is this one of these cases where you keep your friends close and your enemies closer if you're Joe Biden?
I think that's exactly what it is, John. It makes no sense that the vice president, Kamala Harris, the former attorney general of the state of California, the most prominent person from California in our national government, that she would not be the designated spokesperson for the Biden campaign. But we all know the reason why it won't be her.
And Gavin Newsom is doing all of the national rounds. He was on 60 Minutes over the weekend. They asked him if he was running for president, and he went from saying, absolutely not, I don't have any interest at all in running for the presidency, to some word salad that really didn't make any sense, and he didn't pin himself down one way or the other. It makes no sense. If you're a second-term California governor, you're termed out, you can't run for re-election. In theory, this is the pinnacle of your political career. You would be spending most of your time on your day job. You try to leave your mark on the state of California, fix something that's broken, build something that people will look at 50 years from now and say, oh, it was Gavin Newsom who built this. He's not doing any of that. He's trying to inject himself in the national storyline as much as humanly possible, and then seems to get irritated when people ask him if he's running for president. What do you make of what he's doing here? Well,
clearly it has everything to do with the president. Joe Biden is in trouble, and how deep the political trouble is for him on his reelection is unfolding as we see every day with every new revelation about the Biden family, and more importantly, Joe Biden's direct involvement in selling through these many front companies a product that doesn't really exist, and except in one respect, which is influence and bribery. So somebody has to be waiting in the wings. I just think Gavin Newsom doesn't have a clue about how to do that. He doesn't know how to be governor of California, so why would he be any more adept at preparing himself or inserting himself into the presidential contest when and if Biden stumbles again?
Okay, let's talk about Joe Biden, because as I observe everything that's coming out of that White House and everything that's coming out of his campaign team, I say to myself, this is a guy whose people, the people around him, the people who work for him, fundamentally don't trust him. Yesterday, there was a story that they placed in Axios saying that they're working with him on exercises so he has more dexterity on his feet. They're giving him different shoes so he doesn't trip and fall. They're really going to the mat, trying to prevent him from falling down in public again. That was in the morning news. In the afternoon news, I opened up the New York Post, and the lead story was that Joe Biden fell down a flight of stairs yet again. I can't figure out for the life of me why you would place a story in a big national news outlet saying that you're changing the shoes of the candidate that you work for, and you're sending him to, I guess, yoga or Pilates or wherever it is that they're sending him to, so he stops falling on his face. That doesn't help him. It's not like it paints him in a good light, but they think it's going to help him. I don't get it.
Well, the problem isn't him falling up or down stairs. The problem is that his policies are so terrible for America and the American people. People are hurting, and they're hurting badly under the weight of this inflation that is absolutely destroying families, destroying small businesses, wrecking the economy, not to mention the complete failure around the world, and especially just a terrible policy in the Ukraine. So the problem isn't his dexterity. The problem is the policy, and that's why the American people are moving away from him, and why Trump continues to rise in each successive poll.
What do you make of their plan for dealing with inflation? Because it reminds me a lot of what people like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and George Gascon, how they handle crime. When anyone asks them about the spike in crime in California, they say, well, if you actually looked at the statistics, crime is going down. Your emotions may make you believe that crime is going up, but statistically, crime is actually going down. No one believes that, of course, because they're the ones that are cooking the books. And when people stop calling 911 when there's a smash and grab or some law being broken, then maybe, yeah, on paper, it looks like crime is going down. But if you live here, you understand that crime is not going down. You understand that this is just not a safe state at the moment. The Biden administration, whenever they're confronted with a question about inflation, they pretty much respond the same way. Well, if you look at the numbers, the economy is very strong. Look at the unemployment rate. Look at our GDP. Look at this. Look at that. But the reality is that if gasoline costs $6 or $7 a gallon, and it costs you a fortune to buy a new car if there's even one on the lot, and your grocery bill is shooting through the roof, it doesn't matter if you have a job or two jobs if you can't afford to live.
Well, that's exactly the situation. You described it perfectly. That is what the real American feels. They feel high grocery prices. They feel that it's unaffordable now to purchase a home. Not only the housing prices have skyrocketed because of limited supply, but the interest rate is now so high that many people couldn't even think about purchasing a home. This is a crushing economy. And if you go back to a prior presidential election and Bill Clinton, and the admonition in that campaign was, it's the economy, stupid. I think ultimately that's what this election will be about. And there's no way you can simply say, well, the statistics that we have show that you're doing just fine, Mr. and Mrs. America, when people don't believe it, and they're not going to believe it.
Political coalitions are always changing. They're always evolving. Sometimes certain pieces break off and you make up for it by adding different pieces elsewhere. when Bill Clinton was president and he ran for president in the 90s, there was still a very heavy blue-collar element, a blue-collar white element to the Democratic Party. And as we have evolved, many of those voters have left the Democratic Party and gone to the Republican Party. And conversely, college-educated whites, people in white-collar professions, have been leaving the Republican Party and gravitating to the Democratic Party. Well, if you're the Democratic Party and all of the new additions to your party are white-collar, white workers with college degrees, they're not feeling the inflation the same way that blue-collar workers are. And if the only people you listen to are white-collar professionals and they're validating everything that you're doing and saying, you don't see your own blind spot. And it's not the college or the whites without college degrees, I don't think, that they have to worry about losing. I think by and large they've already lost them. But if you're talking about Latinos, you're talking about Asian voters, you're talking about people who run small businesses, people who may or may not have a college degree, who may or may not be in that high income bracket, inflation is killing them. And if you're the Democratic Party, they're thinking inflation's ginning up the whites without college degrees, and I think they're ignoring the impact that it's having on Latino and Asian voters. And those are voting blocks that Donald Trump did better with than people like John McCain and Mitt Romney. If these polls that came out over the weekend showing Donald Trump way ahead of Joe Biden are true, I would imagine that inflation is a huge part of that, and I would imagine that inflation is moving a lot of those Asian and Latino voters into Trump's column. Your thoughts?
Well, I agree with that completely. The other thing that was reported in survey results recently are the number of young people that are identifying with Republicans and with Donald Trump in particular. Surprising percentages of young people identifying positively. I think this will be a shock to the Democrats. I think there's no doubt when you talk about working people, the Latino people, the Asian American people, the Black Americans, hardworking people are absolutely being crushed by Joe Biden's inflation, the Democrat Party's inflation, the Green New Deal, which you notice they don't use that term anymore, but yet we get 100% of that policy. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Trump goes to the picket lines or to the United Auto Workers, because it seems to me that Biden received a very tepid reception on his extraordinarily brief visit. I would think among the rank and file of those auto workers, they know that these electric cars and shipping our auto industry to China is ultimately going to put them completely out of work, much less talk about salary and benefits. It'll be interesting to see, I think, what the reaction to Trump will be. That, by the way, is far more interesting than what's going to take place at the Reagan Library with this debate.
What do you make of President Trump's decision not to participate in tonight's debate?
It's the right decision. He's miles ahead of all competitors, and there's absolutely no reason for him to participate. If he participates, all eyes are on Trump, which means all eyes are on Trump's competitors. Why would one do that if you just don't need to do it? It's not at all that he can't handle the questions and the answers. We all know there's no one better. He's done it in each debate. He's been extraordinary, far better performance than anyone gave him credit for going in. Just look at the way he handled Hillary Clinton masterfully in each of their debates. The problem becomes the moderators and limiting, his ability to fully participate. And so, given all that, there's absolutely no reason to participate in these debates. And I don't think I don't think voters feel like they're being deprived of anything.
When you were in the state legislature, what was the conventional wisdom on your obligation as a candidate when you're running for re-election or you're running for some other office? If you're running against what is essentially a non-competitive candidate, you're going to win. You're going to win in a blowout. It's not going to be a competitive race. The other person isn't raising any money. They're not generating any endorsements. Did you as an incumbent have an obligation to debate them, or would that only happen when it was a toss-up or it was a race that could theoretically go either way?
Well, I think it depends. The way I judged it, because I ran both kind of races during my many years on the Board of Supervisors, in the State Assembly, and the State Senate. I had some races that were very, very tough and competitive. And in those circumstances, I accepted every debate, every appearance. In other of my elections, they were those kind of cakewalk races. And it depends. I judged it on the audience. If it was a community organization that had a long history of sponsoring community debates or forums, I would honor and respect the group that was putting it on, and I would never be there for because of my opponent or opponents. It would be because I was respecting and appreciating the tradition of the organization putting it on. I don't see that with these presidential debates. When we get to the real contest in the November election, there's no doubt that Trump's going to be debating, and if it's Biden, it's going to be catastrophic. If it's somebody else, who knows? But never underestimate Trump in his ability to perform.
Senator Roy Ashburn, former member of the California Senate and State Assembly, thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
John, great to be with you and your listeners. Thank you.
If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, I just noticed the hour with Royal Oaks just popped into my phone.
Well, that means you must be subscribed to the John Phillips Show podcast, which is so easy to do. You can go to KABC.com, click on podcast, but that's so old school. Don't do that. There's a brand new KABC app you can download. Search for 790 KABC in the App Store and you can download it. Don't just put KABC because it'll just show you a bunch of Channel 7s. 790 KABC in the App Store. Download the brand new KABC app, which is an easy way to listen live online anywhere, whether you're in your office where you're not getting good reception or outside of the LA Orange County service area. But the coolest thing about the app is as soon as you open it, the first thing that you see is podcasts of the John Phillips Show.
Perfect.
So download the app.
It's Woo Wednesday.
Ric Flair, let's hear it.
It's Woo Wednesday. Yeah, baby. Woo, 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 woo. Woo, 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 woo.
And that means tomorrow is Throwback Thursday.
That's right. It's time. If you've got a suggestion for music that we play on tomorrow's show, you got an interesting theme for us, couple email suggestions that have come in, songs about clowns because the government's a bunch of clowns, songs about guns because Gavin doubled the gas tax, songs about spaghetti westerns because it's the Wild Wild West in Oakland. Whatever suggestion you have, creativity is encouraged. Give us a call right now. 800-222-KABC, 800-222-5222. And we will pick one lucky listener who gets to choose all the music for tomorrow's Throwback Thursday.
It's Woo Wednesday.
Ric Flair, one more time.
It's Woo Wednesday. Yeah, baby. Woo, 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 woo.
And that means, Randy, tomorrow is Throwback Thursday.
And this week's winner is Stephen in Cyprus. Stephen, what do you want to hear tomorrow?
Hey, John. Hey, Randy. I'd like to hear some Desi Arnaz music in honor of George Gascon, a.k.a. Ricky.
I think we could do that for you. So Desi Arnaz in honor of George Gascon and the nickname that shall not be named.
Yeah, maybe some Baba Louie, maybe some I Don't Charge Cop Killers, some of his famous songs.
I don't think I've heard that one, but I think we can take care of that for you. Stephen, thanks so much for the suggestion, and keep up the Katie Porter emails.
See ya.
See ya.
I just saw a photo recently from I Love Lucy when Lucy was doing something that Ricky didn't want her to do, and he chased her around the room, and he finally caught her, and he threw her over his knee, and he started playing Babaloo on her ass.
It was a different time.
Can't get away with that now.
No.
All right, so tomorrow it's going to be music from Desi Arnaz.
Is there enough of that to get through 3 hours?
Oh, absolutely. Cuban Pete, Sally Sweet, Babaloo, We're Having a Baby. I could tell you a million different songs.
All right, so get your Desi Arnaz requests in as we honor our district attorney. You know what his name is.
Quite frankly.
All right, so tonight is the big GOP debate in Simi Valley, and the Biden administration wants to put their best foot forward. Unfortunately, they don't have one. So instead of doing that, they put the vice president on PBS to make the case to the American people.
Kamala Harris sat down with PBS NewsHour to talk about Biden going with the auto workers on strike.
Madam Vice President, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Jeff.
And as we're here in Atlanta today, President Biden is in Michigan. He's visiting the picket line of the United Auto Workers. Never before in modern history has a president sided so publicly with labor during an active strike. Why was that the right approach? Why not let the collective bargaining process play out, as this administration has done in previous labor disputes?
Well, President Biden has been very clear.
Wow, first sentence.
Boy, right out of the gate.
Well, President Biden has been very clear that we are proud that we will be the most pro-labor administration, probably in history.
Why does she talk so slowly?
Because she is repeating the words that were written for her by someone else. And because she screws everything up, it's now in her head. So she is literally just trying to recite what was written on a piece of paper by someone else.
Labor administration, probably in the history of our country. We believe that it's important to support workers and to support the dignity of work. And this has been a longstanding commitment that President Biden has had throughout his career. Very much the same for me, and it's just the right thing to do. And what we know is that when we support workers in terms of their need to have wages and benefits that are commensurate with their value and what they are contributing to society and to our economy overall, everybody benefits. So that's what you're saying.
You notice they didn't get involved in the writer's strike or the actor's strike, just like Newsom.
Yeah, that was strange. I didn't see Biden on the picket lines in front of Sony right across the street here in Culver City.
No, it's because the studio heads are all his donors.
Kamala was asked a follow-up on the strike. What do you make of the fact that one of the issues the workers are striking over is these mandates for EVs use a lot less labor to build?
Well, let me ask you about that, because it strikes me that the shift to electric vehicles, which is a major point of contention in these contract talks, it's almost as if the administration's two goals are colliding. On the one hand, fight climate change. On the other hand, build out the middle class by supporting unions. And yet we know that when it comes to actually building electric vehicles, it requires less labor, and many of those jobs are non-union jobs.
I would suggest to you that perspective that some people have is grounded in a very old false choice. You can do both. And that is our perspective. We can do both. And that is about supporting, again, the importance of understanding the value of work and that it should be compensated commensurate with its value, and what we must do to invest in our economy, invest in innovation.
I've never heard of a more generic person in my life.
No. She's using a lot of words to say nothing.
In innovation and take on one of the biggest crises the world has ever known, which is the climate crisis.
Let's see how Kamala does on Kevin McCarthy and the shutdown, which CNN now has a ticking clock for.
Meantime, time is running out to avoid a government shutdown on Saturday as House Republicans fight among themselves over whether or how to extend government funding. It appears likely that the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, who's already slammed his far-right flank, is trying to burn down the House, that he might need help from Democrats. Should Democrats supply their votes if it means avoiding a government shutdown and the related consequences that come with it?
Well, if they do that, Kevin McCarthy will get ousted faster than the people say aye.
Yeah.
Well, let me start by saying it would be completely irresponsible to have a government shutdown.
Wait, responsible or irresponsible? You kind of muddled that together.
I think she wants you to hear what you want to hear.
Well, let me start by saying it would be completely irresponsible to have a government shutdown.
Okay, she said irresponsible, but for a second, you know.
As is, I think, at this point, very well known and understood, a government shutdown could mean that the members of our military, servicemen and women, aren't getting paid. It means that people who...
By the way, this is how you take the long approach into not answering the question directly. You go into the sob stories.
She always does this. This is why the American people do not like her, or at least one of the reasons.
She could so simply gain a few points. It's a friendly audience and say Kevin McCarthy is a tool. But she's not doing that.
No.
It means that people who are doing critical work that is about upholding the structures of our government and all that we rely on in terms of those services could shut down. So let's start there.
You know what Kamala Harris is? She's like if you use an AI program to take a 100-word essay and turn it into a 1,000-word essay.
Could you imagine being her English professor?
Really can't.
So let's start there. It would be completely irresponsible. Second, people are playing politics. They're playing political games. There's a lot of showmanship that you're seeing. And if those people put those same levels of effort and talent into actually something that was productive.
Didn't they sell her as an attack dog? Be an attack dog.
She sounds like a dog that lives in some rich person's purse.
I don't think we'd be in this place talking about a government shutdown.
Should Democrats step in and help avoid a shutdown if that's what is required?
Well, right now it's very much in the hands of the Republicans in Congress to be able to do just that.
Also on Thursday, House Republicans are going to open their impeachment inquiry into President Biden with their first impeachment hearing. What's the administration's approach, the administration's strategy for dealing with that House Republican effort?
Well, I think that we are very clear that we're not...
You know, either she's laughing for no reason or she sounds like she's sedated.
Well, I think that we are very clear that we're not going to be distracted by political games, and we're going to stay focused on what we've been doing. I'm here at Morehouse College talking with a bunch...
Not answering that question.
Nope.
Talking with a bunch of young leaders about the challenges that they face and the need for solutions.
You know what? We can stop there because as soon as a politician says, I'm focused on, they're not answering the question, which means they don't need the airtime.
Your vice president, ladies and gentlemen, Kamala Harris.
When we come back, we'll hear about her new job to solve gun violence.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Mark writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com with the subject line, yep. Sounds like Kamala crushed and snorted up some tramadol. Or should have. Hard to pin that one down.
All right, let's go back to Kamala and her appearance on PBS.
Here's Kamala on her new Office of Gun Violence Prevention.
You're also overseeing the first ever White House office focused on preventing gun violence. Absent congressional action, how will that effort make a significant change?
It won't.
Well, if she's in charge of ending gun violence, the whole country's going to look like Chicago.
Well, congressional action is very important. There's no question about that. And the failure to act, I think, is to the...
Did the tramadol wear off?
Discredit of the importance of actually taking hold of the solutions that are at hand. Assault weapons ban. We've had one before. We need to reinstate the assault weapons ban. No reason for assault weapons to be on the streets of a civil society. We need background checks. It's just reasonable that you might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. Similar with red flag laws. Congress has the power to do that, but sadly, a lot of folks there just don't have the courage to do it and have been selling this false choice, which suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. With the office that we have created, the White House Office on Gun Prevention, Gun Violence Prevention, the work that we are doing is to make sure that we are implementing all of the executive orders that have already been implemented and passed.
This means nothing.
We are working with state and local officials in addition to the federal agencies to make sure that those things are playing out. And then one of the areas that has been a particular focus for us is also addressing the mental health issue. You may have seen even with the students today, and I've been doing this throughout my college tour, asking students to raise their hand, college-age students, to raise their hand if they, through kindergarten or 12th grade, ever had to have a drill at school around an active shooter.
Oh, boy.
This is why the Democrats are stuck with Joe Biden. You move on from Joe Biden, Democrats, this is your nominee. You can't do that if you want to win.